Felix Auger-Aliassime.
Bianca Andreescu is a US Open champion. Shapovalov with the moment.
Fernandez. It is another performance to remember for the Canadians.
Welcome to episode 3 of North of the Net, a Canadian tennis show on the Slice Tennis Network. I'm Karina Mustafa, and as always, I'm joined by my two hosts, Brendan McCarthy and Stephen Boughton. Guys, we are officially in clay season, and we have some interesting stories to get through, including an exclusive interview with Bianca Andreescu on her return, so stay tuned for that. Brendan, you want to get us through to our first segment?
Yes, thank you to our guy in the middle, Stephen Boughton, for obtaining this interview. Now friend of the show, Bianca Andreescu, author, writer, and I guess a tennis player to boot. And I was honestly, from a human element standpoint, just happy to hear how candid she was and happy to be back on the court after her post-game presser match against Niemeyer. I just think it's really, really cool to see that because as media professionals, I mean, we hear a lot of media jargon and media tongue. And I find in the tennis world and in the golf world, athletes are much more candid and receptive. And Bianca was just that. So for her to say that it's just remarkable, and it just kind of shows a little bit more of the human element side. As for her playing, which is secondary right now, I thought it was still strong. I mean, you always get a confidence boost when you can, get a straight sets victory in the opening round. And then she fell to Sabalenka, which was only 3 sets. So she took her to 3 sets, and Sabalenka's not a lucky loser over here. She ended up going to the final against Iga Swiatek. I think you guys know who won that.
Yeah.
So I'm just happy to see Bianca back and happy to be back.
Yes. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And yeah, I agree with what you said. Like, it was cool to see her personality going and feeling like relaxed and happy and in a good place. Right. Before we get any deeper, I got to show you guys this.
Hey guys, this is Bianca Andreescu, and welcome to The Slice.
If you've seen anything on The Slice in the last few days, you've definitely seen that clip because I've just been smearing it everywhere. It's kind of like a great, trophy to have for The Slice. New friend of the show, Bianca Andreescu. Obviously, I had a little sit down with her. I'll link to it here if you haven't seen it already. But what she told me, and she told the rest of the reporters up in Stuttgart, which is where the tournament was, is that she feels great. She feels like she's in a great place. She's found her kind of balance of not judging herself if she loses, being too critical, and kind of just being in a good place in life. So that's obviously good to hear just from a human element, like Brendan said. And then I think her tennis, I was watching her practice with her coach, Sven Groenveld, who's a very good coach, Shapovalov for many, many years. They look like she looks very fit, and she looks very dialed in for having, been away for 6 months. She said she had a 7-week training block leading up to Stuttgart, which is very long. Obviously because she had time off because she was just not playing. So she was able to get things pretty dialed. And even though she lost in her second match, it was to Sabalenka, who second seed, made the final. I made the final there last year as well. So Bianca put in a really good fight, could have won that match. And now going into Madrid, I think she has good chances on every clay tournament she plays because she's a great athlete, great mover, and she's one of the best on the tour. Let's not take her ranking of over 100 at face value right now. So Bianca's back. We're stoked, and that's all I got to say.
Yeah, I think we should feel really good about where she's at. I think you're finding that now more and more players are kind of taking breaks and saying, okay, the pressure is kind of off for me now. I just want to go out there and enjoy. And maybe that's where some of their best tennis will come from, when they're in that state of, let's say like Osaka and Bianca, both of them, they're like, okay, I've already won at least one Grand Slam. I've kind of proven that I can get there. Now I'm just going to kind of go into it with a lot less pressure. And obviously, like, Simona Halep's done the same thing. And this wouldn't be an episode without me bringing her up. But and Stephen, I know you mentioned, like, when I was watching her match against Sabalenka, is like, she looks like she hasn't really missed a beat, which is really nice to see. And so, yeah, I'm very, very excited for the Bianca train to be back. I'm excited to see her in Madrid. And she's, you know, we have Leylah, but now we have Leylah and Bianca on the women's side, which is super, super exciting to have again. And then on the men's side, of course, we have Felix and Chapo, who we're going to kind of get into right now. We're not, I don't know how excited we're going to be about them as we are about Leylah and Bianca, but it's okay. We always hit some bumps in the roads. We'll kind of start with Felix, and he's kind of struggled a bit on clay. He lost to Massetti in straight sets in Monte Carlo. He made it to the quarterfinals in Barcelona, but he did lose to Diego Schwartzman in 3 sets. Guys, what do you think? Steven, I know you probably have some thoughts on Felix.
Yeah, he's been struggling, right? Like, and it's actually started before the clay. Like, he lost in his first match in Indian Wells and Miami, so that's brutal for the, you know, top 10 player to do. That's not good. So he wasn't able to switch that around when it came to, he played in North Africa at Marrakesh, lost in his second match there, and then, like you said, lost in the first match in Monte Carlo. It seems now, like, my take is that now that he's become an absolutely world-class, elite, fast court, aggressive player, like we saw at the US Open or at Wimbledon, when he's hitting his first serve and following up with his forehand, it's as good as it gets on the ATP Tour. So that style of tennis does not translate as well to the clay. And, you know, smarter minds than me in tennis, I think, say, like, you know, you want to adapt your game a little bit to the clay, but you don't want to change it totally. And I think Felix is kind of struggling with, like, his clay identity right now, even though he had good results and he's like a super good athlete. So there's no reason he shouldn't be good on clay. Maybe it's just like, now that he's found such a good play style and a good identity on faster courts, which is like most of the tour, you know, hard and grass, maybe, like, it seems like he's not finding his kind of identity on clay. Like, it looks to me like almost like he's trying to add too much artificial clay spin to the ball. I don't know. Like I said, his team knows more than me. He knows more than me. But just from it, he's clearly struggling with, like, how do I play? Or maybe he's just not actually playing well. And that's just, like, he's in a bit of a rut after winning. Maybe it's the first title curse. I don't know. You just play bad after your first title. But I'm not too worried. He is losing ranking points, though. So Madrid is a faster clay. I know that. So hopefully he can do well here and he could serve a really good percentage of first serves in. And if he does that, I see him winning a lot of matches here.
Well, first of all, shout out to our boy, Montreal repping here, Expos, for Felix.
Very epic.
We're going to get him on the show eventually and maybe get him as a friend of the show. I think really for me, it's not so much struggles. You kind of alluded to it, Steven. Like, it's more of just the wear and tear of the season. And for Felix, it's kind of like right now, recency bias. It's like a 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I mean, obviously you're on the high of winning your first title in Rotterdam. You know, you're ousted in the round of 32 at Monte Carlo and then the round of 16 at Marrakesh. And then you go to the quarters against Diego Schwartzman, my guy, who has one of probably the best baseline coverage shots on tour, in my opinion. And just watching that match, I was watching Felix and Schwartzman. Felix was hitting his shots. Like, he was hitting his shots. Shot placement was great. And Diego was returning everything. And you look at the match stats a little bit, like, it just seems to be like an area or like a situation where Felix wasn't capitalizing on prime opportunities when he had them, right? So he had 8 aces. Diego had like none or 1. But then Felix also had like 6 double faults or something. And then, you know, Diego saved like 8 of 10 break points, just like little things in the match where it's like, man, like when you have them, you got to have them. And like there were situations when you had Diego on the ropes. So I think for Felix, it's like, okay, you know, you're in the meat of the season. Like we're now fully in the swing of clay season. You know, the big stage at Roland Garros is coming up. Gear up with these tour tournaments at Madrid, right from the get go, and keep plugging away, because we know how elite this guy is, and it's just a matter of him like capitalizing when he has the chance. I think maybe he kind of like gets in his own head maybe too much and too often. So I think he's going to rebound here. It's just been a bit of a rut.
Yeah, it is.
Rotterdam win.
Yeah, and you're right. It was not a bad loss in Barcelona to Schwartzman. Schwartzman's a top player, super good on clay, beat Nadal last year in Rome. So it's not like that's a brutal loss. But as you alluded to, he had chances there, and I think he's now moving in the right direction again. Definitely, and in Barcelona was a couple steps forward. So I'm not worried. Like I said, I think he clearly has been struggling. But Denis is back now, I guess. Karina, that's you posted on our little group chat.
Yeah, it was funny because the three of us were kind of talking the day before. It's like, where's Chapo? Like, he doesn't seem like he opened his dog shelter, and then it was kind of like, okay, that's the only thing we've kind of heard about him. So like, is he injured? What's going on? And then yesterday we just saw on Instagram that he posted that he was in Madrid. So I guess he's playing in Madrid after missing a couple of tournaments. So I don't know. I love watching Chapo on clay. I think he might adapt to it a lot quicker than Felix might, for example. But yeah, it was very interesting to kind of see, like, okay, for like an entire week we haven't really heard anything from him, but he's here. What do we guys? Yeah. Are we excited for him to make his debut on clay?
Absolutely, I love seeing him slide around on there and using his forehand to hit it flat, but also just to put spin in there. He's super creative player, and he has a ton of different shots. So yeah, I love him on clay.
I was getting a little worried too. I love how now it's just like, oh, so-and-so was first to report on Chapo's return. It's like, what's your source? It's like, oh, he posted on his story. Like that's the media. That's the media world now that we're in. He's like, oh, he posted that he's touching down in Madrid. Oh, okay. So like he's playing in Madrid.
Yeah, like breaking news. He's touching down in Madrid. It's like, yeah, we all saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's now it's just up to us to get bombshell interviews like with Bianca and
exactly
upcoming ones with Felix and Denis. But yeah, I think Madrid's going to be a saucy little week here.
Yeah.
So the draw was just released today as well. Stephen, you have the draw on hand. Maybe you can kind of take us through what looks juicy in terms of matchups for you.
Yes. Well, the WTA draw is out. The
WTA.
Yep. The men's draw is not out yet. I think it might be out later today or tomorrow. It's really hard to find that information. But I didn't get a media credential there this year, so maybe that's why. But yeah, the women's draw looks great. Update, if you haven't already heard, Swiatek has pulled out. So that kind of opens the field up for another player to win a tournament on the WTA. What a concept. After she's been dominating 4 in a row. But yeah, there's a ton so for our 2 Canadian women, we got Andreescu in the first round playing Alison Risk. I learned that it's Risk, not Risque. Even though,
have you been saying risque?
And then I said, I think in the last video I did, I said risky, and I was like, oh my gosh, stop! And then I was just trying to ask people, like, actually, what is it? But yeah, Alison Risk, I guess. But I like this little quarter for Andreescu actually. So she could beat she can beat anyone basically. But if she beats Alison Risk, and she probably plays Danielle Collins, who not always the most consistent. So Bianca could do that, and then she could just kind of sneak up that little section of the quarter before she has to play someone, in the top 4 seeds in the quarterfinals, which would be Maria Sakkari. I think I got Sakkari right. And so I think that's a little opportunity land for Andreescu there. And then Fernandez actually has it a little bit harder. She plays Kasatkina, who's a solid player in the first round. And then she could play Sakkari in the second round. And then she could play Pavlyuchenkova in the third round. So a little bit tougher spot there for Fernandez, but I think both girls can do great on the clay.
Yeah, I think looking at both of this, it's like Fernandez and Andreescu are both clay players. So, they do have a good chance to get through the first round at least, if not further. I think they're both going to face like a lot of good tests at this tournament. And I think that's going to kind of determine maybe how they'll do, in these other clay tournaments and then French Open at the end of the month. So yeah, I'm like just the right amount of excited and hesitant about how they're going to do. I don't know, Brendan, how about you? Any spicy predictions?
I would tend to agree with you exactly. There's a bit of hesitancy, but I definitely have to lean towards Leylah, and we're going to get into the BJ Cup qualifiers now, finals for Canada in the moment. But I think because Leylah basically put Canada on her back for that BJK Cup. So I think she's riding a high off of that. She spearheaded that tournament, frankly. And I think for her, it's just like, confidence continues to rise. I believe a media member asked her, like, how far do you think Canada can go in November? And she's like, we can win it. Like we can win the whole thing. So to that, I mean, her confidence always amazes me, especially because she's not even 20 yet. She's 19, right? She's not even 20.
Yeah,
I think she's 19 still. Yeah,
she's 19.
Her and I are the same age, which is crazy.
And it's dumbfounded how poised she is at this young age. So I think she's going to carry that into Madrid, and looking forward to watching her play.
Yeah, I hope she does, Brendan, because she's actually, I was just, clicking back through her results of 2020, and she had such a good U.S. Open. She's actually just not had a good 2022 so far. Reality, if we think about it, like she did win Monterrey, which is a great win. So that was a good tournament in isolation, but lost early in Australia, lost early in New Wells, actually mid round of 16 there, but so that was decent, actually. She beat Nisimova and Rogers, but then lost first round Miami and Charleston. So, she's definitely not had like the start, I think, to 2022 that she would like. So hopefully she can take some of that BGK energy into Madrid. And
I like that, BGK energy.
BGK energy. Maybe it's a t-shirt in the making. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd buy it.
Yeah, and let's just stay on the topic of Leylah and let's talk about those qualifiers, because I went back to watch her match and she was really, really dominant. Like, she was making her opponent run the court. She was finding open like spots. She just did some like really outstanding shots. Some of her slices were very clay-like, even though it was on a hard court. So I feel like she is ready for clay season. I feel like the way that she played shows me that, she is ready. Like, it's going to definitely translate to clay. And so I'm super excited. I was like very, very impressed with the way she's been playing. Like you said, Steven, she's kind of struggled a little bit in this first kind of bit of 2022. And I think her play with Team Canada was really kind of giving me that confidence for her again.
Good. Yeah, that's what we want to see. And I think this is the section of the season here right now where I'm really interested to see like what type of damage she could do. Because, after the US Open, she was one of the hot, arguably, the second hottest player on the WTA as far as like, what's she going to do? Like, we had Emma Raducanu and her, like, what's the future going to be? And, both of them very expectedly have had like a little bit cooler starts to 2022. So, which totally makes sense because they're like literally babies, but not in a disrespectful way, but they're like very young. So it's like obviously hard to have a consistent, results at the top level. Was that our ace of the week? I
guess it was.
We have collective ace of the week.
Yeah, this
fault
week
of the
we
week.
have.
So.
Yeah,
we have one because we also have a collective fault of the week. Although there's kind of two sides to that one, and we're just going to get into it. But Wimbledon has done two things. It has banned Russian players from competing, and it has also allowed unvaccinated players to compete. Now, both of these things have caused a lot of controversy in the media, with like fans talking about it as well. And I think there was also talk about Wimbledon getting rid of the rankings points and it kind of turning into an exhibition event because of all of this, especially when you have like two of the top 10 players in the world who are Russian. And so if you're excluding them, it's kind of like, this is becoming very, very messy. So it's interesting to think about Wimbledon as an exhibition event, but that's kind of where we're at. So we'll kind of start with that. Steven, thoughts on banning Russian players?
Yeah, so a lot of controversial things, as we're now used to, it seems like, in the last 2 years. But Wimbledon banning Russian players, I'm against that. I don't think that's cool at all. Taking the example of the top two men players, Medvedev has said that he's, against the war. Rublev has also said he's against the war. And now after the decision, Rublev has said that he would actually happily donate all of his prize money to Ukrainian like relief organizations, saying, but like there's only so much these Russian players who can do, who don't even really live in Russia, and it's also not safe for them to say that they're anti the war, right? Like let's not get it twisted. Russia is not the same as the United States or Canada or England, where you can just have basically, total freedom to say what you want. It's a sketchy place. I'm just going to say that. And so, yeah, I think penalizing these Russian players is just not, I don't think it's fair. I think it's discriminatory. But I'm pro you. We're all here compassionate for Ukraine, and it's just such a tough place to be in. So, anyways, I'm against them banning the Russian players. And what's actually happening? So it's not Wimbledon who's going to be dropping the points. It's the ATP and the WTA are trying to decide if they're just going to strip the points from Wimbledon this year. because how is it fair if Daniil Medvedev, the number 2, almost number 1 player in the world, doesn't get a chance to compete? Like, it's messy, because if you're just looking at it from a fan's perspective, as a fan, I just don't care about the rankings really as much anymore, because they're so influenced by things like, a war or like a pandemic now. It's getting a bit ridiculous when we're just like, Djokovic can't play the Australian Open, Medvedev and Rublev can't play Wimbledon. It's like, okay, well, what do points mean anymore if players can't play for things that they can't, it's outside of the court, I guess. So yeah.
I think it's honestly just inconsistent decision making. If I'm a Russian player, especially, I'm irate. Like, you think of the players that are going to be missed, like Potapova, Pavlyuchenkova, Kachanov, obviously Medvedev and Rublev, who you alluded to, Stephen.
Sabalenka.
I think Sabalenka, thank you. I think, honestly, if maybe it's an extreme reaction, but there could be a potential boycott here. Like, players of other nationalities are like, you know what, we're walking. Sorry, like, this is figure it out, because this is what I didn't come here for this. You know what I mean? And you could start seeing, like, even Canadian tennis players being like, to support the Russian players being like, I'm not going to compete. I'm just going to respectfully withdraw before it even starts.
It is a thought, but maybe that would happen. That would be really crazy if that happened. I can't imagine it happening, just because of how, at the end, like, the tennis players like to stick together, but at the end of the day, they all are independent contractors, and they're trying to, make money. But yeah, they are put in a horrible position, because it doesn't feel, because there's such a big number of Russians, right? Like, when Novak wasn't allowed to play the Australian Open, that was such a last minute, unorganized, crazy thing. Everyone's kind of like, no one's going to like boycott for that. But this is like, I could think of 10 players off the top of my head that are in the top 50 or WTA, ATP, that aren't allowed to play. So you're just like, what? And we're like a month and a half, 2 months away from it. So it's just, to me, it's crazy. I don't know. And then the announcement came out yesterday, I guess, that they're allowing unvaccinated players to play, which is like, I didn't even know that was going to be announced. My personal take is I didn't even think that was an announcement being needed to happen, because like every other tournament right now is letting unvaccinated players play. So to me, I was just like, oh, okay, good. I actually saw it as more of a like, wow, that might change. Maybe if there's another like rise of COVID here, maybe that'll change. But I kind of forgot that would even be an option to like stop unvaccinated players from playing. I don't know what you, Trina.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the boat where it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, after everything we've been through in the pandemic and everything, to just kind of start acting as if the pandemic never happened. And it just feels like it's giving all the players, like even with Djokovic, who made such a big, like, dramatic thing out of it, it's like, it's just kind of validating, that tantrum that he kind of threw at the Australian Open, saying, right, we went through all of that. All of this happened just for us to be like, okay, it doesn't matter anymore. You know what I mean? Like, that's the part that kind of just bugs me.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I understand why that bugs you, but it's like, then does Djokovic just never get to play tennis again? Because the pandemic, I mean, it's not technically over, I guess, but it, like, in Europe, at least where I am, like, it is kind of over. Like, there's no checking of anything. Like, there's no testing. It's, to me over here, it's like, makes total sense that they're not, going to ban someone from playing. But I guess, like, you're right. It is weird to, like, I guess, or it's like a big question, or it's at least still like a topic of conversation and be like, hey, yeah, one major this year, this was the rules, and now it's just a separate set of rules for another. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's more just like, is it actually over, or are we just acting like it's over with the way that things have gone? Brendan, what are your thoughts?
So for the banning Russian players, that's a generalized assumption from the top. And as you alluded to, Karina, with the unvaccinated, it's like, well, what did we do the last 2 years to work towards opening up again? You're just going to be like, okay, like, yeah, let them in. We don't care. It just seems to be it's embarrassing, really. Both of these decisions, it's utter lunacy. But I know we're a tennis-based show, and this is a collective ace and fault of the week for us on this show. But I mean, I think it's, when I read the news, I'm like, I just laughed, and I honestly think, Stephen, like, there could be a boycott here, man. I mean, we've seen it before in sports. 2 years ago in the bubble. Completely different situations, but we've seen it. And those are independent contractors too. So.
And now the good point is that the PTPA, the Professional Tennis Players Association, the kind of new weird kind of player union that's out there. I'm actually blocked on Twitter from one of their board members because I was giving them crap during the Djokovic saga in Australia. But they came out originally and like said a statement about the banning of Russian players, and they said, you know, they basically didn't say anything. So I guess failed in their job of banning the players. But then they actually made a new statement, I think today, saying that they said no discrimination. So they said we're against banning players from any form, like nationality or vaccine. So they would have been happy with the decision from Wimbledon on the unvaccinated players, but they're not happy with the decision about banning the Russians. So maybe that'll get, because actually I think most of the WTA and ATP players are part of the PTPA now. That could get some type of boycott more actually, or that could get some more bargaining power to maybe change Wimbledon's mind. But if there's any organization, tournament in the world that doesn't seem like it would change its mind, would it not be Wimbledon?
Well, you're definitely not wrong there. It's just kind of a bunch of messy and blurry lines that I feel like I still don't really know how to navigate them. I don't know how we should be navigating it. It's just a very weird situation. Yeah, exactly. It's like
on a lighter note, on the note of Wimbledon too. Before, I believe it was a couple days after we dropped episode 2, but Serena announced with her hype man, Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers, that she's going to make a return, and she's eyeing Wimbledon, right?
Yeah, that's what
I think she did say that, but then I now am
Wimbledon or US Open. She hasn't played in a year, right?
Yeah, something like that. I've kind of like, it's like, I feel like we've like, it's very disrespectful of us, but I feel like we've like moved on from Serena in the women's game. Like, well, it's just like this next generation of like crazy talent on the scene, you know? So I don't know. Maybe that's for another episode.
She's still the GOAT until she finally hangs it up.
I don't know. I think she's got to get 25 to be the GOAT. I don't know. Like the undisputed GOAT. Like, let's be like, do numbers not matter?
Hold on, Stephen. I think we're forgetting. I think we're forgetting how dominant she was.
Yeah. Go see King Richard. Go see King Richard too, Stephen.
I did see it.
Did you?
Very good. I also saw Will Smith like almost ruin it by slapping the shit out of Chris Rock. That was crazy.
Yeah, we love slapping on this show. But yeah, I think that kind of brings us to the end of our show today. Thanks for tuning in today. Make sure to follow the Slice Tennis on Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Links are all in the description. This has been North of the Net on the Slice Tennis Network. We'll see you for the next episode.
See you next time.